Partnered by Times Influence.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the Economic Times BFSI Leadership Exchange Summit 2017, co-powered by InfrasoftTech and SBI Mutual Funds. Well, this came into being to create a platform of global leaders to increase opportunities within the banking and financial services and insurance sector, which brings us all to this evening of having experts like yourselves right here. Please give us an opportunity to welcome on stage Mr. Deepak Lamba, President, Time Strategic Solutions Limited and CEO WWM. Put your hands together as he steps on stage to extend a personal welcome to each one of you. Sir?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored on behalf of the Times Group, very pleased to welcome you all to this momentous occasion. The BFSI Leadership Exchange Summit is a very special initiative for all of us at the Economic Times. The seed of this summit was sowed when we were prompted by the leading lights of the BFSI sector to create this platform where global leaders could converge and collaborate on a common ground of multiplying the opportunities within the BFSI sector globally. And I wish to quote the late Malcolm X, an African-American minister and leader of human rights, and he said that the future belongs to those who prepared for it today. We are grateful to the BFSI legends who have gathered here today in leading our efforts to contribute to the larger good of the financial community. We hope to facilitate a rich information exchange to launch an exciting and enriching journey for the BFSI leaders of today and tomorrow. I congratulate and express my gratitude towards each one of you for your continuous support in this endeavor and initiative, and I wish you a very insightful evening ahead. Thank you.
Moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, I am now about to invite on stage our chief guest for the evening. Please put your hands together as I welcome Honorable S.S. Mutraji, Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of India, to tell us more about Indian BFSI growth agenda, a need for a relentless push. Please put your hands together as I invite Sir on stage.
At the outset, let me thank ETH for inviting me to this very important seminar. Now, as you are all aware that the global financial system will soon mark the 10th anniversary of the onset of the subprime crisis. The global growth rate has still not regained the traction it had prior to the crisis. And like all other economies, India too witnessed some spillover impacts. But even as a major part of the globe continued to fight recessionary pressures, India is gradually moving on the recovery path. While expecting a complete decoupling in an integrated world is impossible, it is extremely important that the financial sector stays resilient in face of adversity and continues to subserve the need of the real economy. And I would like to repeat, the need of the real economy, and this is a point I would like to emphasize at the outset. Financial sector is a means to an end, and that is serving the real sector. It is not an end itself, and most of the ills that the world is grappling with arose because financial sector outgrew the real sector. Financial innovations are important, but not to feed the greed. And I think that is the broad theme and important point which we need to reflect and need to discuss. The performance of the BFSI sector, and more specifically the banking sector, is sort of a barometer for the performance of the economy, and hence, if the BFSI sector has to do well, by translation, economy should do well. With that, I conclude here. Thank you very much for a patient listening. And once again, thanks ETH for inviting me here. Thank you.
When we look at inclusion and when we deal with inclusion and discuss that in the context of financial inclusion, digital has actually been the core binder from a perspective of bringing banking to the masses. When we look at digitalization of banks, clearly it has been driven by digitalization of payments first. I think the government of India, along with Reserve Bank of India, has driven programs which are then executed by NPCI. Those will bring across the ability to have the use of easy technologies like biometrics, use of technologies such as using your Aadhaar card and being able to conduct payments.
With the advent of digital technologies, I think the way consumers are engaging with the category and the way they are consuming financial products has actually gone through a big transformation. You can almost see it in every part of it, whether it's on information search, whether it's on the purchase journey, whether it's on retention. Just about everything that consumers engage with the business on is now a lot more digitally enabled, and even manufacturers, providers have realized this change and are investing significantly in assimilating all of this and making the journey relatively smooth, friction-free, and something that kind of again gives better value back to the customer.
When you talk about financial services and you say has there been a growth, I think I'll kind of restrict it and say when you look at it from a savings perspective, when you look at it from a mutual funds and life insurance, you'll see a substantial growth. And I think that's been driven to a large extent by money moving into formal channels of saving. And so, all these sectors are seeing a lot of growth. I think what technology will enable are twofold things. One is in terms of customization and therefore personalization of offering to a customer. Two is the cost. Telecom companies and FMCG companies had realized this very long back when they actually came up with chota recharges and your 1 rupee pouches. I think now it's time for financial services to be able to offer that, and I think we are well equipped to offer that because we use technology to actually connect to the last mile customer.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to introduce to you our first panel discussion for the evening, Leading Lights being the true north for BFSI leadership. Please put your hands together as I welcome on stage our panel chair, Dr. Arvind Virmani, former Chief Economic Advisor of India.
We have top leaders from across the world. And what I thought was that the variety of these leaders, it will be useful for aspiring leaders to get a sense of what it takes from their personal experiences to rise to the top and to be profitable. Let me start by inviting Zareen Daruwala to start the presentation.
I'll talk a little bit about the institution where I came from, where I actually grew. So when I joined ICICI, it was a development financial institution. I joined in 1989. Actually, ICICI went through a difficult period. And that's where the leadership actually decided to sort of, one, embrace technology. Secondly, they said that the stressed assets, as a proportion of the balance sheet, we have to grow the balance sheet. And the third thing that ICICI did was actually get into retail banking. So the other thing that I have learned, for example, is from Mr. Kamath. Actually, as business leaders, he used to sort of encourage us that embrace technology. So I was a thoroughbred corporate banker. And in 2002, when ICICI merged with ICICI Bank, I was told to run the rural business. I had to run rural branches. I had to computerize rural branches. I had to deal with the people who didn't know how to even use a computer. And I set up the first rural ATM. We did a lot of use of technology because we didn't have the branch network. And when I moved from ICICI to Standard Chartered, a lot of people sort of felt that it's a challenging job. Why am I moving? But I think that stint in what I did in rural banking gave me the confidence that I can actually solve or get into any situation and resolve things. So that's my journey. Thank you.
Move on to our second speaker, Dr. Sitaraman.
The leadership traits comes from within you, integrating your heart and mind. And that's what you as a person made of, self-realization. and driven by heart. Management by heart is what drives me to sustainable journey. Middle class, having qualified as a chartered accountant, left 30 odd years before to the Gulf. And again, me as a qualified accountant, my passion was more towards technology. There was a convergence of technology and finance. Those early 80s, I had the privilege of getting into a bank, and the first challenge was to convert the complete core systems. Hitherto, they couldn't accomplish in 6 years. The general manager's job was at stake, and he had me, and he gave me 6 months, which I delivered. The rest are all incidental. Then I started running these institutions for a very long time. At the age of 35, I had the privilege of running a financial institutions. 15 years of that journey, and again, last 16 years, I have the privilege of running Doha Bank. So what I try to articulate is to recognize the hard work, the determinations, and again, ethical and moral governance should drive the change. The rest are all incidental. With the change in face of the world, the change in face of the globalization, the politics and economics may or may not converge. You as a professional has to drive the change with stakeholders in mind, integrating your heart and mind. You as a person, if you are conscious, you will drive the institutions with value-driven principles. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Rashesh Shah.
Thanks a lot for this opportunity. I've learned, I think, one thing, that leaders grow. We have this impression that leaders are born, but I found very often that leadership is also an acquired capability, it's an acquired skill set. And in Edelweiss, we invest a lot in building leaders all the time. And I think it's about exposure, it's about perspective, it's about trial and error and all of that. And what I've also learned is the leaders, each one is a leader in their own way. So having inside Edelweiss and outside of Edelweiss dealt with a lot of leaders, and I've found there are all kinds of leaders. Everybody has their own style. There are hundreds of books which have been written on leadership, but eventually everybody finds their own sweet spot on what is it that they are as a leader. And we believe that in financial services, if leaders can do these 4 things, manage cost, manage risk, manage people, manage clients, you will end up being a good leader. Thank you very much.
And the last speaker is Sanjay Vora.
Thank you, Arvind. So we are in an environment where things are continuously changing, and now they're changing even faster. So what kind of a leadership do you need in that kind of an environment? So frankly, I don't know. And I doubt anybody can really talk about this in certainty as to what the traits and characteristics of the leader should be, because ultimately leadership is contextual, right? It defies any kind of standard definition. It changes. Your leadership style will change depending on what situation you're in. And when I sort of look around, and I do study, and this is a study which was conducted recently by Russell Reynolds and Hogan, where they introduced, and the study is called the Leadership Span, where they introduced this concept of duality. And they basically said the leaders really need to look at things in 4 major dualities, and if I can just name them quickly. So the first is be disruptive and pragmatic. Be risk-taking and reluctant. Be heroic and vulnerable, and be galvanizing and connecting. So as you can see, there is contradiction in what they're saying. So in this kind of an era, what is going to happen, or is happening, is that there's a fusion between physical, digital, and the biological worlds, to the extent that it's now literally changing everything that we do. It's impacting all disciplines, all industries, all ecosystems, and also changing the way we work, the way we manage, and the way we lead. So therefore, the future leaders of tomorrow, which are sitting in this room, I'd like to end by wishing you all the best in the exciting journey that's ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Change we've seen in the last year or so, with this push around digital, in any case, it's digital money particularly, will be making it a lot more easier for closing a transaction in the BFSI space. The intent is now to be able to get digital to be able to understand the needs of the rural customer, who we should not pre-assume is doing wants the product that we sitting in our head offices is going to want. So that's a challenge for digital to handle.
Digital is a way for the future. It's not only it's true for insurance, but it's true for all financial products at least. And it's the best and easiest and quickest way to reach out to markets. You would find too expensive to reach out of the physical presence.
You have a variety of technology initiatives. Now we are talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence leading to adoption of chatbots and robo-advisory. This is one part of it. On the other side, we have, let us say, this iris scan and voice recognition, speech to text particularly in vernacular. These are very customer-friendly technologies which help us to reach the investor in the Indian context in particular.
Our next panel discussion, CEO Circle, Reinventing Norms to Stay Relevant. Sir, all yours.
When we talk about strategy, like everything in life, change is the only constant. And that is what I think is one of the biggest problems with strategy. So, Tarun, I'll start with you only. How do you manage that, being at the helm of the company? You have to plan, obviously, but you also, there's so much change. How do you walk that fine line?
If I see from what the life insurance sector has been going through, I think we've kind of gotten used to a lot of change in the last, I think particularly the last 7-8 years after Lehman happened. The challenge is, of course, in sudden stuff that comes in, like a demon happening, or like Lehman happening and things like that. I think that's where the DNA of the organization makes a difference, and that's where your nimbleness, your ability to be flexible, your ability to get teams together, communicate significantly, all of that comes into play. And those are the things that you can't really necessarily plan for, and that's where the mettle of the organization comes into play.
Okay. Mr. Shane, do you agree with your compatriot here?
Yeah, I do. But I think change should be embedded in the DNA of the organization. It is a culture. Because change is not going to stop. Things are going to change. They're going to be disrupting forces, and change is going to be continuous. So I think you have to build a culture of change.
Right.
And you have to encourage people to make mistakes, take chances, change. The one reason why people don't change is because they're scared of. Scared of the unknown, scared of moving out of their comfort zone. So you have to create that culture where you encourage people to take chances, make mistakes, fail fast, come back. Don't repeat the mistake.
Is that something you're doing at IDBI Federal Life?
Yeah, we try to do that, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Mr. Rao, coming to you. So one of the biggest changes, which was totally unexpected, unplanned, was 8th November, demonetization. How has your experience been dealing with that change, and how has that changed your strategy?
Demonetization, in a way, has been kind of a Lehman moment for the asset management industry as a whole, in a positive sense. In 1 month short, I think the RBI's efforts of ensuring the transmission of interest rates hadn't happened for 2 years, just happened in a month. And the amount of liquidity that it generated in the banking system. Now, because of the fall of interest rates, people were really looking for return, and that has sent them in droves to the asset management industry. Also, the stated objective of Demon was to ensure that there is no regeneration of black money, which kind of closed out the traditional avenues of real estate and gold. So that also brought people into the asset management fold. The third thing, which perhaps is even more critical, is that during Demon, people got used to using digital modes of payment. And that habit, even after the cash position came back to normal, has stayed with them. And this adoption of digital is really what is going to drive the industry into different reaches of the country going forward.
Mr. Holland, coming to you, the idea is that it is important for the leadership will kind of set the strategy, decide the strategy, but it has to percolate all the way down. Just from your wide experience, what do you think are some of the steps that leaders need to take so that what they are thinking and what the guy right at the bottom of the organization structure is also understanding and hopefully thinking and hopefully doing that same thing?
You see, demonetization was an event that no one really expected. So for those companies which had moved into digital technology, they took the advantage of it. They were seeing. So as long as you've got a vision, a longer-term vision, and you have the clarity to communicate that to people, then there will be changes around, and you can adapt to those very quickly. But you've got to have the vision first. And if you don't have the vision, then you're just really kind of always fighting against the tide and trying to work with the change rather than being ready for the change. I think in terms of the employees and people we work with, if you have that ability to say, we're all in this together, and you're sharing the spoils of the good and the bad times, we're all in it together, then you'll find that people will come up with ideas of what either the competition might be doing or what they're hearing in the marketplace, which will help your company. And they're ambassadors of your company and the vision. So they're getting feedback daily from their peers, their friends, their family, and they're the biggest promoters of the company. So they are helping your vision and shaping the vision.
Mr. Mirjankar, I want to come to you on technology, because that is obviously now, nobody needs to even state it, that it is really important for businesses across the spectrum. But how does a CEO or the board decide how much technology they need to adopt, how much is too much, and how much is enough, and how much is too less?
When you want to spend on technology, make sure that you do not spend too much in the current technology, because there's something new that's going to come up, and there's something much better that's probably coming up later. And how technology has typically worked for especially the financial industry is that whatever you invested, let's say, a couple of years back is suddenly obsolete today. Right. Look at how Demon has worked for, let's say, the banking industry. You've invested in POS machines, you've invested in ATMs, huge capex probably in some of those areas, and then you find that everything is now supposed to be a digital transaction from an Aadhaar card or a mobile. Yeah. And you kind of feel that you're cannibalizing that investment with, let's say, getting into digital. But that's the way it's going to be, and I think it's only going to get better in that sense from a perspective for the customer and worse probably for the bank. So when a CEO decides to implement technologies, I think it's important to set the right platforms. Investment in the right platform that is future-proofing is essential. And the elements there would typically be relying on something that can be taking the bank towards being more efficient. Call it machine learning, artificial intelligence, etc. Right. And those investments will hold in good stead for the banks and, of course, their direction led by the CEO in saying that investments done in the platform will help the bank be omni-channel, getting across and reaching out to the clients.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, gentlemen, ma'am. Thank you so much for being on the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause for our panel, please?
And it's now time for me to request you to put your hands together for yourselves. You've been such a fantastic audience. We'd like to thank all of you for being a part of the Economic Times BFSI Leadership Exchange Summit 2017. Your presence has made it even better. Thank you.
Digital is something which is going to be very, very powerful and helpful for the insurance industry, particularly since penetration is so low and we all have a vision to take it as close as to 100% in as low a period as possible. So on one side we have digital, which is available to us, internet, which is growing, artificial intelligence, which is all within our control. We also have indirect help from the government of India through its other initiatives, and we have a regulator who is also saying, I'd like to see more and more companies use the e-commerce route to help increase penetration and help engaging the customers much more, particularly at a claims time.
I think there are many uses of technology, of mobility, which can be combined with a physical infrastructure where there is trust, there's proximity, there's familiarity to actually ease the consumption of services. So in the BFSI space, I think you'll have to figure out channels, you'll have to figure out combination of digital and physical. And at the same time, you got to provide a very high level of security of data, of transaction completion, which frankly becomes very critical when you move from the physical to the quasi-physical or the fully digital world.
ET, the BFSI Summit, is truly a great platform for exchange of ideas. It's well recognized and well respected, I would say, by all stakeholders, certainly participants alike, where you actually get to cross-fertilize new ideas, you get to learn best practices. And you know, the interesting thing about the world we live in today is change is so rapid that nobody can say they know it all. And hence, platforms like this, engagements like this provide you a great opportunity for you to quickly come to speed with what's happening around you in general and within the BFSI sector specifically.
Partnered by Times Influence.